liftoff.
Houston now controlling. Atlantis begins its penultimate journey to shore up the International Space Station.
I worked at NASA for 9 years on the International Space Station, and I worked in International Space Station Assembly, and that consisted of over 50 missions to the International Space Station. We assembled it piece by piece, and we work with international partners all over the world, including Japan and Canada, Russia, and 18 countries from the European Space Agency. One of the big differences between working on the Space Shuttle program and the Space Station program is the Space Shuttle program will fly, let's say, 4 times a year at 2 weeks per mission. So you can see if you were an aerospace engineer working on the Space Shuttle, how often you would be working in real-time operations with the safety of the astronauts. When you're working on the International Space Station, it's a 365-day-a-year job that you're working on the safety and of the astronauts. So I have extensive experience with the on-orbit operational aspect of working with the safety and health of our astronauts. I resigned from NASA because NASA made the decision when we began our space exploration missions to begin testing on primates. It was the first time that we have done this in approximately 30 years. That's also approximately my age. So NASA and primate testing has never been a part of my memory of NASA. I had seen some archival photos of monkeys being used in test experiments, but I really believe that that chapter of NASA was in the past, and I was very disappointed to hear that NASA had made the decision to begin primate testing again. And I worked very hard to try to convince NASA to reevaluate that decision while I was there. Unfortunately, we weren't able to come to an agreement on that. So after much deliberation, because I love my job at NASA so much, I just felt that I needed to represent myself and be true to my own ethics, and so I made the decision to resign. I'm still a very large advocate of NASA. I love NASA. It was a dream job for me. The approach of the primate testing is to develop countermeasures in space medicine to help the astronauts combat the space radiation sickness. And so the approach with the primate testing is really treating the symptoms instead of going directly to the source of the problem, which is the space radiation exposure. Once they're irradiated, they'll be brought back into individual cages and be restrained into a chair mechanism where they'll be forced to do task performance tests on touchscreen computers for a period of 3 to 4 years. Well, as an aerospace engineer, I felt that it was very important to focus on enabling technologies, which includes space radiation shielding. I think it's a much better approach, engineering-wise, to not allow the space radiation to enter into the vehicle and not expose the astronauts to the space radiation environment. The space radiation environment is actually coming from 2 primary sources. The first source would be our own star, the sun, and those are typically relatively lower energy radiations unless you have a solar flare. But the other source of space radiation is coming from outside of our solar system. And those are the extremely high energy radiations coming from supernovas and black holes. And those are the energy levels that we currently do not have the technology to shield against. And those are the radiations where we really need to focus on the enabling technologies for space radiation shielding And if we were able to do that, then we would not have to perform any primate testing, because we wouldn't have to simulate the environment of space radiation sickness onto the astronauts, because they would never be exposed to the space radiation environment. When I was at NASA, I actually worked in the same building as the astronauts, which is a very exciting experience. So the safety and health of the astronauts is extremely important to me. I think that it says a lot that 2/3 of the international space community involved in the space station has said that they don't see a use for the science in primate testing at all. President Kennedy gave our nation under a decade to send a man to the moon and return him safely to Earth. And at the time that that decision was made, engineers had very little idea of how we were actually going to accomplish that great task. And I really believe that my generation should be allowed the same opportunities for interplanetary space travel. Currently, the only technology that we have used for space radiation protection is material shielding, which can only shield the astronauts from the lower energy radiation environments. So it is very important to develop the enabling technologies to shield the astronauts from the radiation environment, not only for the astronauts themselves, but for the space vehicle hardware that they have to operate. I also believe that if we were able to accomplish space radiation shielding, that there would be spin-off technologies and applications that would benefit mankind. The director of the European Space Agency worked through ADI to say that they were putting an end to testing on monkeys. The European Space Agency went a step further and said that they didn't see the use in the science. I had already made the decision to resign. I resigned on March 15th, and the letter from the European Space Agency was written on April 1st. And so when I heard about ADI, I contacted ADI, and because at the time I felt very alone, and ADI really helped me, because I went from feeling one person representing NASA's view to understanding that I had 18 countries from the European Space Agency that felt the same way that I did. I would like NASA to just reevaluate the idea of primate testing. We are supposed to be building enabling technologies for space exploration, and I believe that starting out by saying that space radiation shielding is something that engineers cannot accomplish, and so we have to work on helping the astronauts with medication to help them with their radiation sickness is not the right approach. I would ask NASA to reevaluate whether or not this test is the right direction for NASA in the long term, given our new direction for space exploration and the fact that our international partners no longer think that this is the right direction to go. I think that space radiation shielding is critical to any sustainable space exploration program, and we need to focus on radiation shielding technology and developing enabling technologies. I think that space radiation shielding is the #1 critical enabling technology needed for space exploration, and I don't think that we should start an endeavor of this magnitude without addressing the technology of space radiation shielding. I don't think that we should ever expose astronauts to radiation levels higher than what they would be exposed to as just the general population on Earth. And we really need to work toward that. And given the time, I have high hopes in NASA, and I have high hopes in the bright minds at NASA to be able to come up with brand new technology that can focus on the safety and the health of the astronauts, And you do that by never allowing the space radiation environment to come inside the space vehicle.